Hey, it's Marco Hanna from PhoneDog.com, and with the Moto G being a very popular phone for the past few weeks, I thought it would make sense comparing it to another very popular small and less expensive phone from a couple months back, the Samsung Galaxy S4 Mini. I remember all the buzz about the S4 Mini when we saw the leaked photos, and I thought it would make complete sense comparing these two devices against each other. So let's see how these two compete in this full dogfight of the Motorola Moto G and the Samsung Galaxy S4 Mini. Let's start simple with the S4 Mini. It's basically an S4, but only smaller, with the display measuring in at 4.3 inches. The resolution of the display is 540 by 960, which brings it to about 256 pixels per inch. The phone itself is basically built out of the same plastic as the Samsung Galaxy S4. It's cheap feeling, very slippery, but somehow feels a little bit more dense than the normal sized S4. For the most part, it's lightweight and has a very slippery and fingerprint-friendly back. Underneath, you find a 1.7 GHz dual-core Snapdragon 400, 1.5 GB of RAM, and an Adreno 305 graphics card. The camera is an 8-megapixel sensor capable of taking 1080p video, and the phone runs Android 4.2 with TouchWiz. The Moto G is a bit bigger than the S4, measuring in with a 4.5-inch display and a more pixel-dense 1280 by 720 resolution and 326 pixels per inch. The display is noticeably sharper. You also find a 1.2 GHz quad-core Snapdragon 400, 1GB of RAM, so basically slightly more powerful hardware than the S4 Mini, and the same graphics card. But sadly, that's where things will stop looking good for the Moto G. The camera is only a 5-megapixel camera, only capable of shooting 720p video. The phone, while it feels better in the hand than the S4 Mini, has been constructed out of plastic, and unlike the Moto X, the back cover is actually replaceable, which is actually a good and a bad thing. The good is it lets you customize the phone with different color backs, and they do sell a lot of these customizable backs, but the bad makes this phone larger, heavier, and thicker than the S4 Mini, and by a long way. So if you're just looking for a small Android phone, the S4 Mini would be one of the greatest choices for you. It's actually really tiny in the hand, and I don't think I can really express this in video. It's a very small device. However, since Motorola is now owned by Google, Android 4.4 KitKat and future versions of Android is almost guaranteed to run on the Moto G, with a launch date very close or even exactly the same day as the Google Nexus devices, unlike the S4 Mini, which is still stuck on Android 4.2. Now, as I said, the Moto G is noticeably larger than the S4 Mini. I'm not sure if that's such a bad thing. The Moto G does feel quite good in the hand, but the S4 Mini does kind of shock you in how lightweight and small it is. It kind of feels like an iPhone filled with helium, but only wrapped in the same plastic you find in cars from the 1970s. The displays are also massively different. The Moto G has a better display on paper, and it truly does, but the Super AMOLED display on the S4 Mini will always win when you compare them side by side to the human eye. It's just the vibrance and the colors and how bright the AMOLED display is compared to the IPS LCD. Take them outside, however, and the Moto G will triumph on top of its IPS LCD display and Retina display meeting pixels per inch. The IPS display was obviously better in direct sunlight. The software running on these two phones are also very different. The Moto G is almost running a vanilla version of Android, and this is Android 4.4 KitKat. The S4 Mini is running Android 4.2 with TouchWiz, and which really does change the whole experience of Android, and it mainly comes down to what the user wants to do with their phone. TouchWiz may seem clunky and weird to some, yet feel modern and colorful, while the mainly plain Android experience on the Moto G may feel rather boring, or to me pretty worry-free. And even with features like S-Voice or Google Now, I feel that the Moto G just gives a better experience. The software may be plain, but that's what Motorola wanted. You can customize all of your home screens with widgets and apps, unlike Samsung, who just throws as many widgets and applications they can at you. It feels like Motorola really wanted to deliver good experiences, while Samsung is just wanting their customers to only use their widgets and apps. It does feel more snappy when it comes to going through web pages, apps, and other parts of the Android software. That's likely due to Android 4.4 and the extra 2 cores in the processor. And everything on the S4 Mini just feels a little slower than on the Moto G. It's just the animations and the cool sound effects that TouchWiz has, something I can live without. The Moto G just does what it's intended to do. No special tricks or cool animations, it just does what it does. But now we get to another important area, and that's the cameras. In the past, PhoneDog hasn't really tested phone cameras in such a big way, and that's something I really want to change. You see, the most important camera you have is the one you always have on you, and what do you always have in your pocket? Yes, your phone. So to pit these two against each other sounds like a reasonable idea, doesn't it? The S4 Mini has an 8-megapixel shooter, and the Moto G has a 5-megapixel shooter. To be honest and quite blunt here, they are both pretty bad. It's an obvious price cut to make these phones possible, so don't expect Note 3, Lumia 1020, or iPhone 5S results. They are acceptable though. Good enough to go on Facebook or Twitter, the photo quality from both of these devices are pretty much on par with each other. Samsung does have a bigger photo, but in low light, the S4 seems to throw a lot of noise and artifacts in the photo, while the Moto G does retain a lot of great detail, especially in low light. However, when you take a photo outside in a lot of natural light, you'll find that the larger photo from the Samsung Galaxy S4 Mini will capture more detail. Now, another big part of taking a photo is the app itself. The original app on the Moto G was just terrible. It took seconds to take a photo on the G, and seconds are vital time slots for taking photos. It's the difference between taking a good shot or a shot missed. Now, the Moto G has an updated camera app. Thanks to Motorola putting the app on the Google Play Store, taking photos is now pretty much easy and simple and a little bit faster than before. It's still not the fastest camera application I've ever used, but it's good enough. The settings come up in a neat way and everything is pretty usable and legible. The Samsung S4 Mini has a Samsung-built camera application and things are also pretty good. The photo taking time is much faster than on the Moto G, but it may take a few extra seconds for the camera to refocus, especially when you're taking a macro shot. So if you're going to ask me which one do I prefer, well, in almost all the areas, the Moto G. It may be larger, heavier, not as recognized as the S4 Mini, but I do prefer function over form. I prefer having up-to-date software, an almost untouched Android experience, and hey, I really dig this light blue back, or this black back, or this dark blue back. These two devices are great for anyone. If you're really wanting a super compact device, the S4 Mini is the device for you. But if you don't want to break the bank or just really want a good Android experience, then the Moto G will deliver that. The Moto G has been one great device that delivers such a good experience at a great price point. It's fast, relatively lightweight, and having almost guaranteed Android updates for the next year or so, it's a device to buy without the worry of not having up-to-date software. The S4 Mini, however, is a device running Android 4.2, TouchWiz, and doesn't feel nearly as good in the hand. It's not a bad device by any means, but it's not the device that comes out on top this time.